The other party's rejection is a measure to receive and give love. It is also a neurological self-preservation response and a sign that something may be wrong with your approach, i.e., you may be perceived as threatening. So in this mechanic of love, I want to make two clarifications. The first clarification is that if we put ourselves in your shoes, you are the same. If you reject someone, it is because you yourself don't have a certain capacity, you are incompatible per se, to accept someone else's love, or you just don't have the ability to transmute that love or translate that love, or you're just on a completely different wavelength. And this idea that the other party rejecting you, it's not solely on their shoulders. It is also on your shoulders. And if we take on or assume the role of extreme accountability, then we would be looking at ourselves as the true cause for the rejection. But if we also look at ourselves and we kill our FAE bias and we look at why we reject other people, it is because we don't have that capacity. We aren't competent. We aren't in a position where we can agree to giving and receiving love. And so rather than getting upset at someone else who rejects us, which I know it stings so bad, right? But rather than getting upset, we can understand this mechanic behind love and the mechanics behind rejection. If we look at the law of cause and effect, there is always a reason behind why someone rejects another party. You yourself are no different. You are subject to the law of cause and effect. You have a good reason as to why you reject other people in your life. If you reject someone, are you a bad person? If you gaslight someone, are you a bad person? Normally if no one's talking to you, for example, you have a reason as to why you're not talking, right? If the other party, if they're stonewalling you, if they're not interested in reciprocating, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that they're malicious. It means that they have a reason. And if we look at the reason being us, it means that we didn't have the capacity or the competence to draw out of them some type of reciprocation, to draw out of them some type of love. We look at ourselves as being the problem. If our communication is not on par, then rather than pointing the fingers at the other party and saying, oh, he's not a good communicator, she doesn't know what she's talking about, blah, 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 we can look at ourselves and say, well, you know what? This is what I did wrong. This is my contribution to the problem. This is where I can improve. Now, I do know I am being a bit ambiguous and quite vague here, actually, because I'm kind of all over the place, and perhaps you can appreciate my raw input, because I'm not particularly organized here. I am going off of a series at this time to help make more sense of this topic if this is something that interests you. And so I'll make a couple more episodes in the near future, so stick around for those if you're interested. And another thing I want to clarify about rejection is that it's a neurological response. It is a self-preservation response. So if we look at the law of entropy, the default position is always going to be a no, and the miracle is yes. I mean, if you just look at the planet Earth at all, it's a speck of dust in the vast ocean of darkness. That's a miracle. And so conditions have to be met for things to come about. Your car is a great example of this. If your car malfunctions, that's the law of entropy at play, because you can't go driving your car forward if one of your pistons is warped, if one of your tires are missing, if your frame is bent. If something is misaligned, if something is out of place, it will not function in the direction that you want. And love is the exact same thing. Love requires a mechanism to operate. Love requires a system to come about. I mean, if you look at the solar system, that's a system. It literally is in the name. Perhaps if we look at atoms and stuff like that, I'm not a science expert or anything like that, but I'm supposing if you look at atoms, right, they spin around, right? Like there's a system going on here. Another great example of what I'm talking about, if this doesn't land for you, is the invention of the light bulb. Now, there are other means to accomplish what you want, right? There is more than one way to skin a cat, right? But the invention of the light bulb requires a very specific route for the light bulb to exist. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he was able to successfully invent the light bulb. And so all of those times that he failed, that was feedback. And this is what we need to understand about rejection, is that rejection is simply feedback. It's not generally this malicious intention to harm you, to cause you emotional suffering, right? Rejection could actually be a form of protection. Because imagine this for a moment. If Thomas Edison literally wanted to invent the light bulb and he was successful with all 1,000 attempts at this, wouldn't we all be blowing up with light in our face? So entropy can actually be a form of protection. Because if we were to say yes to every single thing in the world, everything would probably literally explode. This is why, generally speaking, if a man approaches a woman on the street and he asks for her phone number, 9 times out of 10, she's going to reject that man unless he meets very certain criteria. And the reason she needs this criteria to be met is because if she was to literally say yes to anyone, she would be up for grabs for literally anyone and every man would take her. And that's not what she wants. And if she was to literally say yes to every man, like I said, she would not necessarily explode, but she would be completely distraught. It's not within her capacity to say yes like that. And so what I'm saying here is if we put ourselves in the other party's shoes, especially a party who has rejected us in the past, and we feel really bad about, we feel really hurt about, we can understand that it was simply a safety mechanism behind why they said no. It's simply the natural laws of entropy and the laws of cause and effect. She had a good reason to say no. Another thing about self-preservation is that your body is connected to your mind, in a sense. There is a neuropsychological connection. Now, if you were to experiment with yourself and try to eat something that was harmful to your body would definitely attempt to regurgitate that. You would puke. You would probably get sick because your body is trying to fight off or recover from some type of foreign agent. And this foreign agent, I forgot the specific word. There is a very specific word that I'm thinking of. But this foreign agent, when it trespasses into your bodily integrity, it does not belong there. And your body will try to excrement that. It will try to get rid of that. It will try to eliminate that. And sometimes this means getting sick with the cold or the flu. And by the way, getting the cold or the flu is actually a good thing because this is actually the human body's anti-fragile response, which is actually a good thing. We shouldn't be trying to mitigate that. So I digress. When someone rejects you, it's also a bodily response. Very similar to climbing heights, right? There's a lot of people out there who are afraid of heights because you know that if you fall down, you will die. And it's similar in the form of romantic rejection. If someone is rejecting you, it's because they feel threatened, or at least the energy in which they occupy. Now, the energy in which someone occupies is a completely different video for another day, right? But long story short, humans attach themselves to a story or a narrative, and this narrative in itself is a form of energy, and energy seeks to express itself. So you yourself as a human being, this might sound really weird, but you're not actually who you are. You're not actually yourself. There are a million different characters out there who you could be embodying, and there is a form of energy or multiple forms of energy within you that sort of culminate into this thing, which is you. And that energy seeks to express itself. Normally these expressions of energy are beliefs, self-concepts. I know for me, about a year or two ago, I was uploading tons of videos, and I have deleted most of those, so you can't watch those now, but I had a lot of self-deprecation about myself. And I'm still looking to recover from that self-deprecation, that trauma. I'm actually rejecting an old version of me because that old version of me is actually harmful to myself, or at least the new piece of energy I'm embodying.